Hey, let me turn on this light, see if it looks better. Just got back. Sorry, I'm a little late. I guess I'll change it to 3:30 every day, huh? It's probably a better time for everybody, if you're still at work maybe, or if you work out of your home or whatever. 3:30 you've gotten most things done and you usually take a break around now, right? I hope it's a good time. I think 3:30 is about right. 3 o'clock was pushing it, and I'm sorry I'm a little late. It is now 3:22, so 3:30 would be about right. Got done with my very important errand. We had to move our bus recently, our school bus. We had it parked behind our property on the side of the cemetery here in Hornell, New York. And finally, the cemetery, I mean, they could have just put a note on our windshield or something, but they called the police, and the police got the deputy mayor involved. They said they were going to tow it. The deputy mayor was really nice. It wasn't her threatening to tow it. She was really nice. Those are parking spaces at the back of our property, but we've always wanted to park our big school bus. It's 43 feet long. We always wanted to park it on our property. And we just didn't trust that our long driveway was going to be stable enough until we graded it, because it's really bumpy. But the tow guy said, you can drive it in or I could tow it in, because we just had a stuck brake. It was just one brake that was stuck. I thought it was some kind of safety mechanism that locked our brakes when the parking emergency brake malfunctioned. That's what I thought, but no, it was fine. It was just one of them froze up in the damp situation out there over time, and he just he caged our brake and got it unlocked. It was just one, and I was able to drive it into our driveway right down the slope. It's very sloping. I was scared, and it's all overgrown and everything, but it was fine for a big school bus that's like, I don't know, 26,000 pounds. It's okay. We don't have a 4-wheel drive truck, so I mean, Dean even thinks we could probably put the truck in there, but it has like a side shoulder on the driveway too, where we could park the truck. But I don't know, until we get it graded, or at least put some gravel in ourselves, a little more gravel to smooth it out. I'm not really confident about our truck, so that remains parked up there on the side of the cemetery, and the deputy mayor says it's fine. But the problem with our truck is that here in New York State they have inspection, and when we first moved here, I think they staged an auto accident on our street to make it look like there was an accident and that broke our mirror, our driver's side mirror. But mysteriously, the mirror is missing, and the mechanism, the mirror mechanism was flipped back, like something hit it really hard, and it was the plastic had crumpled a little bit, but it's still functional. We just need a mirror to glue back on there, and it's fine. I mean, parts of it are not like new, but that's what we're gonna do. We just kept putting it off, and getting it new is very expensive. So we really were upset that somebody did this to our truck, and we kind of know, we think we know who it is, and I won't say. But yeah, so that was not we didn't get a very great welcome here in Hornell, New York when we moved here in January. It was really difficult. But fine, they're forcing the issue now. The deputy mayor is saying that we need to do this by the end of August. Okay. So we passed inspection. I mean, we passed otherwise. We just have to get some of the tenting off our windows, because our truck is from Florida. Both our bus and truck are from Florida. It just so happens. And there they need the tenting, but here it's illegal. So they're going to have to peel that off, and the car place we go to can do that easily, and it's not going to be any charge. It's just that mirror. It's going to be a charge, and we got it today. We got it today at the junkyard. We went to the junkyard in Bath. Really nice junkyard. and it's nicer than the one in Augusta, Georgia. And we got a mirror assembly for, get ready, $17.89, something like that. It was less than $18. Brand new, it's $349, something like that. If you go to the dealer, it's $1,000. Yeah, and we put a claim in our insurance, but if labor will be $120, I would rather them do it professionally than Dean try to attempt, because that'll be a mess. So we're gonna just bite the bullet and pay $120. Plus, we have to pay a re-inspection fee. We would have not had to pay that extra $21 fee if we had been able to afford to replace our mirror in 30 days, but we have to pay again now because it's been more than 30 days. So that was our big, huge errand. Sorry to go too much into it. Just wanted you to understand what we're going through here in Hornell, New York. Yeah, so many bills. I haven't even begun to pay all the bills that are going to wipe us out again this month. We'll see what we can do and what we can't do this month. I'm pretty sure, we're going to be able to fix the one flat tire on our bus, our school bus that we got coming up here. We traveled from Virginia all the way up here. It was the inside rear axle tire, and we were fine. And we didn't even know we had a flat tire for sure, but we do. And that's included in our roadside assistance that I have for the bus only. And we can get that done for free, and we can take it off. And yeah, they think I can just drive in and out of that driveway. I was really scared going down, and our brakes went into the danger zone, because I was pumping the brakes. I didn't want to run over the guy, who came and was going to tow us if I wanted him to, but he unlocked our brakes so I could drive in to our driveway. And yeah, I just can't pump the brakes like that because, I guess air brakes are different than regular brakes. But, I can put it, I think what I should do, Dean was mentioning, I should put it into first. He was saying second gear. It should be first gear going into a driveway. It's a slope. So if I put it into first gear, then I won't have to depend on the brakes as much, and park it, and then I just back it up. It's like it's like a slope. So it's 43 feet long, and it's kind of scary, never done that before, but it was not bad going in. And I was really worried it was too rocky, but it was graded at some point. Clearly it was, because it's solid, and it's not just mud or anything. And there are a lot of rocks, but and the big bus can handle it. So I'm so pleased. Things are working out, even if there are complications sometimes. All right. Well, I decided to see what I'm trying to find like a live news program that I can refer to when I'm when I'm live like this. And the only one that is like live 24/7 on YouTube is Fox Now. And I avoid Fox whenever I can, but they are live now is what it's called. Yeah. But they're the only thing live on YouTube 24/7. And so I figure I'll give them a try. I'm just peeking every so often to see what's going on. Moments ago, there's something in Chicago, Illinois. Dexter Reed shooting, no Chicago officers charged. Okay. Oh, Dexter Reed Jr. is the deceased. That's very sad. Okay, let's put it on. Let's look at it. Let's see what's going on in the world while we're on here. And let's share. Let's see. Dexter Reed. I have it muted.
Additionally, multiple officers saw Reed firing at them. Other officers and civilian witnesses corroborated that the ducking and swerving motions that were observed. Reed also exited the car in that crouched position. The officers could not see his hands, and the civilian witness corroborated that. Officers thought that Reed was coming at them when he emerged from the car and walked toward them. The officers' words and actions reflect a fear that Reed had a gun and was still a threat while on the ground, and they could not see his left hand. We also look at the fact that Reed committed multiple forcible felonies. He committed an aggravated battery with a firearm, as well as attempt murder when he shot at Officer St. Louis and shot at the other officers. We also look at the timing that the events unfolded in seconds. Reed started shooting less than 30 seconds from when the officers approached his car, and the shooting lasted approximately 41 seconds. So after we thoroughly review all the materials provided by COPA, the Chicago Police Department, the Illinois State Police, we determined that there was additional evidence that we wanted gathered. That was the additional forensic testing that we requested. We conducted a use of force analysis based on all applicable statutes and case law, and a final charging decision was made in April of 2025. And that final decision, as the state's attorney indicated, is that our office has declined to file criminal charges against the 4 shooting officers because we could not meet our burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. In April of 2025, as our office has been doing since 2017, we submitted the entire file to the Illinois State's Attorney Appellate Prosecutor, also known as ILSAP. They're located in Springfield, Illinois. They act as a special prosecutor and conduct an additional independent level of review. On July 7th, 2025, ILSAP advised, based upon a comprehensive and independent evaluation of the information provided, we find that the decision by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to decline prosecution is consistent with the evidence. With that, we'll take questions regarding this incident.
Charlotte, we'll go TVs in order. Charlie, Michelle, Charlie, Courtney.
I'm sorry, who are we starting with?
All right, as you see, they're listening into this press conference coming to us out of Chicago. It's still going on live right now, but we wanted to rewind just a little bit. But as you see here, they're going into the question and answer portion. We're going to continue on with this in just a second. We had to step away for a 2-minute break. Stay right here with us.
Okay. Okay. I've been looking to see what is going on with the Epstein case. And I found this. Let's see. Let me share it with you. Because there's been a trial going on with the Epstein case. It was yesterday, and what's today? Wednesday? I guess it was Monday and Tuesday. Yeah, okay, I see that you see the photo, the web page. All right, so there was a trial, yes, on Monday and Tuesday, and I don't know, I guess it's over. We'll find out. Let's see what this is Politico.com. Trial exposes internal tension over Trump's use of National Guard in LA. The trial over the legality of the Guard in Los Angeles as Donald Trump forged ahead with a new deployment in Washington. And these are members of the California National Guard and U.S. Marines, and they're guarding a federal building on the 17th of June in 2025 in Los Angeles. Which one are the Marines? Are these the Marines? And members of the National Guard and U.S. Marine Guard. This must be the U.S. Marine Guard, and this must be the California National Guard. Okay. They look like, I guess they look similar. I would have guessed these are the Marines, but this is the Marine right here. He's got his desert camouflage. They have the forest camouflage. Okay. The 11th. That was a couple days ago, right? Yeah, we're on the 13th today. So that's Monday, right? So, okay, let's see what it says. Can you see me okay? I mean, you don't really need to see me, but okay. As President Donald Trump deployed the National Guard in Washington on Monday, a court hearing on the other side of the country shed new light on the administration's drive to use the military in American cities and some of the tensions at the heart of that effort. On the witness stand in a federal courtroom in California, a longtime military leader testified that he expressed early resistance when federal immigration authorities wanted military support for a planned immigration operation in June in Los Angeles. Okay, so, they expressed resistance. But when he voiced his opposition, a senior Customs and Border Patrol official rebuked him and questioned his loyalty to the nation. Oh, that's so silly. Recalled Major General Scott Sherman, who commanded the Guard troops in Los Angeles. It was a remarkable split screen. In LA, the testimony from Sherman came as part of a 3-day trial. So this is the third day, I'm assuming, in which a judge will decide whether the administration's use of the National Guard in that city of Los Angeles broke the law. In DC, Trump forged ahead with a new deployment, trying to distract from the Epstein case and from this trial about the use of military force in Los Angeles when it wasn't requested. Okay, so they're gonna the judge at the end of the 3 days, so it's going on today, I believe, will decide if the administration's use of the National Guard in that city, using the California National Guard, but he also used the military, broke the law. In DC, Trump forged ahead with a new deployment and even suggested that other Democrat-run cities like New York and Chicago could be next. Yes. Yeah, this is just the beginning, folks. And this is why I'm live streaming every day now. U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer, who is overseeing the LA trial, noted that his decision in the case could have implications for whether Trump is able to make similar deployments in other cities. The trial's first day of testimony centered largely on how the military provided support to immigration agents on the streets of Los Angeles and whether they were strictly adhering to legal limits on their ability to participate in law enforcement activity. Though the testimony from 3 witnesses, 2 military officers, and an ICE supervisor largely described a cautious and limited approach to the military's role, there were revealing moments of tension within the administration. Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth deployed 4,000 Guard troops to LA in June and soon added 700 active duty Marines. Yeah, they chose the Marines rather than the Army and Air Force, which is derived from the Army's Air Corps, because the law doesn't state other branches. Because in the past, the act, I guess it's an act, was created in response to soldiers being deployed in the South after the Civil War. And so there weren't other branches of the government at that point, I don't think. So that's why other branches of the government other branches of the military aren't named other than the Army and the extension of the Army, which is the Air Force at this point. And that's why they chose the Marines, which is part of the Navy, right? An extension of the Navy, which is not named because they didn't have a Navy in the 19th century, right? That was developed later. I mean, I should look up the history to really tell you for sure, but I'm pretty sure, the Army is the only branch of the military that is in the Constitution. The other branches of the military are not there, are not named by the Constitution, because they didn't have anything else but the Army. All right, their purpose, according to Hegseth, who was to protect federal buildings and flank ICE agents during immigration raids, some of which have been beset by unruly protests and violence. But California Governor Gavin Newsom says the troops have stayed from their mission. They have strayed from their mission. I need glasses, I'm sorry. Sometimes I don't see the words clearly enough and I read them wrong. Instead, conducting civilian law enforcement in violation of an 1878 law known as the Posse Comitatus Law. Act, sorry. That's what I was talking about. I guess it was yesterday. That law was intended to prevent the president from turning the military on civilians without express approval from Congress. And yeah, he has violated all of that. In California anyway. I guess in DC, because they're not an official state, he can decide if there's an emergency and act as the governor because they don't have a governor. And that's I guess that's the role of the president in DC. But the problem is there's no emergency in DC. And it's only Trump who, decided there was an emergency. And I just, I know he has, it's just a mess. He's just trying to rig everything. And, he's trying to put himself in office forever and ever and be the fake king of our nation. This nation, the United States, it's the United States of America. That's my nickname. And I know it's not in the Constitution and it's not publicly known. I am queen. And I was born into my role. I was born queen. And this is because in the War of 1812, which we can look up and discuss, Britain took back the states, the United States, and the colonies, we were called back then, secretly. It didn't work public to make, to have them be British colonies publicly. But in the War of 1812, Britain found a way to do it secretly so no one would know, and then everybody just masquerade as a free nation called the United States, and there were no more problems, right? And this is why I was born. We had to undo the wrong that was done. The United States is not supposed to be a pretend situation. It's supposed to be for real. This is supposed to be real democracy. It's not supposed to be monarchy masquerading as freedom for all when it's not, right? I'm queen, but I'm queen of the people. I am one of the people and have been. I didn't have a typical life. I had a much more difficult life than any human being had because nobody would survive. I did survive. So I know what it's like to suffer, and I know what poverty is because I've lived it throughout my adult life, and I'm 59 years old, almost 60 years old. So I really know what it's like. I really am a people, I'm not some privileged person separated from the people who doesn't understand the people like Trump. Trump has never had a hard day in his life. I mean, I know there was abuse in his family from his father was abusive. Perhaps his mother was abusive. His siblings, I don't know. And he had behavioral problems and was sent away to military school. I'm sure that wasn't easy. But, he's never lacked resources ever in his entire existence. And so he really doesn't understand what it's like for the typical person to survive day to day. He's always led a privileged life, and he acts like he's so superior, like he's done something so monumental and unique in human history. No, he's just a spoiled rich kid. His father was the one who built the wealth in the family. And then my people, before I was born, well, no, even it was after I was born. He wasn't connected and hooked up in the 60s. I was born in 65. My people approached him, I guess, in the 80s. That's when he became well known. Made him a big superstar because he's one of my genetic fathers, okay? And all his money is mine. I mean, he has an earpiece in his ear. We talk to him. We tell him what to do, when to do it, what to say, what not to say. He's a puppet. We say jump and he jumps. We say roll over, he rolls over. I mean, it's really remarkable he's like clay in our hands. Now, I was a kid when I did this, and I know people don't understand how I could do this if I was a kid, because I was a kid in the 70s, right? And I don't think very many people knew about Trump in the 70s. It was the 80s when he became really well known. Actually, I guess he became well known in the 70s, didn't he? But he got really big in the 80s, right? And there was a lot of lead up to that. And it was my people that did that. And he was at my house in the late 70s, 78. I'm trying to think what year exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking I was in 7th grade. That was 76 to 77 was 5th grade for me. 77 to 78 was 6th. And 78 to 79 was was 7th grade. Yeah. So it was the beginning of 7th grade that he started showing up to my house. And that's how he got really big in the 80s. It was my money. And, as a kid in the 70s, like 1974 was when I did most of the stuff. They, everybody doesn't probably understand how I did so much. In Vega, okay, I was born here on Earth, so I'm not from Vega. Vega is a place, my grandmother, who is my genetic mother, and daddy, who is the guy who raised me. He's one of my genetic fathers, but he's my genetic father many times over. And he's known as Clint Eastwood today. He's, the famous Clint Eastwood of movies and film. And I have no contact with him today. He was separated from my life when I was a young child. I was 5 years old when I was separated from him. And it was a very huge trauma. He raised me, and he gave me all the tools I would need in the future, my whole life. He taught me everything I know. I had a mother and a father, but they were consumed with themselves and other things. They weren't good parents. My mother was an alcoholic and drug addict, active, and she became active later too. She became clean and sober when I was in 4th grade. Finally, I mean, she fell off the wagon a number of times first, but she finally got clean and sober. But she didn't stay clean and sober. I mean, I don't know, drinking cough syrup, that's like a form of alcohol. I don't know. At least not clean. Maybe you would consider it clean and sober. She didn't remain that way. My father always drank cough syrup, and he taught my younger brother, Mark, how to do it. And my brother, Mark, taught her how to do that after she was sober. And, and people in AA, she was part of AA. They tell all kinds of stories of how they would drink coughs. She got all kinds of ideas from her AA meetings, and she just kept it secret and claimed she was sober for decades, and she wasn't. I caught my brother and my mother smoking crack on her back deck, porch, whatever you want to call it, back in the 90s when I was visiting it. I think it was 98. I mean, it was the most shocking thing I've ever seen, and it was only thanks to my boyfriend, David Craig, who I didn't know smoked crack, that I ever figured it out. He asked questions and asked me what the pipe looked like and all this stuff. I mean, my brother was just pretending that he was smoking some special brand of tobacco, and my mother was just out there accompanying him, but David knew otherwise, and he questioned me, and we figured out together that they were smoking crack. And it was shocking to me. I mean, my mother, my brother, crack just seems so crazy to me. I've never smoked crack myself. I mean, I very lightly experimented with drugs. I hardly ever smoked pot. It doesn't seem to really do much for me anyway. Very lightly drank. I mean, in high school, middle school and high school, I experimented heavily, but I never really got into drinking, thank goodness. And I never got into drugs. My brother, he got me into mushrooms briefly when he was a deadhead. I mean, I think I did them like 5 times, and that was the only drug that I would experiment with because I thought that they were very healthy and healing. And they are. And now, what do you know? And nowadays they use it in for the treatment of depression and other, and that's what I had. I had depression, and it was like a spiritual journey. I thought it was very healthy, and yeah, I mean, it was mushrooms, I did them like 5 times, and I felt that they really helped me heal. It was in my 20s somewhere. I didn't do any drug after age 25. And, I think, other people, drugs were forced upon me without my knowledge, consent, or permission. But you can't count that. If somebody like sneaks a drug in your drink, you don't know it. I mean, I didn't willingly, I didn't participate in that. That I was a victim, that's a crime. And I was the victim of that crime many times, but I did not voluntarily, consciously, intentionally take any drug after age 25. I cut it off at age 25. It was somebody suggested that it was a good age for me to stop. And I was like, you're right. And I never did it again. Never did anything voluntarily with my consent, consciously, knowingly, ever again. But anyway, my brother went another path and he went all in. He dropped so much acid. I think he told me once, my brother Mark Elliott, that if he dropped acid one more time, he would go insane or something. I didn't ever want to even go there. Acid, no way. I'm sure when I was a young child, I believe, as a young child, they were experimenting on me. And I do believe that daddy did it with me, because the CIA wanted to experiment on me, and he did it together with me. And yeah, lots of drugs were used on me as a young child. It's very sad. And that's why daddy developed that drug detox that is in Scientology to help me and my body cope with all the chemicals that they were experimenting on me with. Yeah, so that's where Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds comes from. LSD. I guess they experimented on all kinds of substance on me when I was a young child. And I can't really count that because I was a young child. I didn't have control. It was forced on me. I was born to my mother who drank gin throughout our pregnancy and also was injected with heroin. A large amounts of heroin, and she drank gin, and I'm the only healthy, normal baby born of triplets, of the triplets that she gave birth to. And when she got pregnant again with my brother, and it's a long, I'm getting into a whole new story here, and I've talked about it before. But the brother I grew up with, Mark Elliott, was not given birth to by my mother. The babies were swapped at the hospital. It was my full brother, Greg, and I named him Greg because I like the name Greg. I had a lot to do with the what is that family? The Brady bunch, yeah. I like the name Greg, and Daddy developed all these TV shows, okay, and I think that he was involved with the Brady Bunch, and I really like the name Greg, and then one of the boys was named Greg, right? Was he the oldest one? I was thinking he was the middle one or the baby. I'm not sure. Anyway, I named him Greg, and I used to communicate with him, used to talk to my mother's belly. Daddy encouraged me to do that to help him. He needed my help. When she got pregnant with him, they cut her off. They cut both of us off because they were injecting me too as a newborn baby. Can you imagine? And I used to be really upset about that. But now that I understand, I mean, I was born an addict, and they couldn't just cut me off when I was born. I mean, they had to keep giving me some, right? Because I was in my mother's womb. And when they shot her up, I got shot up. So I was born an addict, a heroin addict and alcoholic, I guess. And so they cut us both off. That was every Freaky Friday. That's where the Freaky Friday comes from. I don't think I elaborated on that. I just got into explaining that we called it Freaky Friday, and I didn't tell you why in another live stream or something. That's why we called it Freaky Friday, because that's when my mother and I were shot up with heroin by doctors. Doctors would come to the house in Palo Alto, the Zodiac house. And well, I guess when I was first born, I was brought home to Los Altos. My parents rented a house in Los Altos, and then they bought a house in Palo Alto in 1968, just before my brother was born. And it was not Greg who was brought home. It was my brother Mark, who had a healthy pregnancy with my identical twin's mother, who's a relative. And but the problem was he was born, they had to induce labor early. And so they had my mother in the hospital for 2 weeks waiting for him to mature another couple weeks before they induced labor. His mother was very concerned that they not induce labor too soon. She wanted him to be okay. And he was, but he was a very, he was a very upset baby all the time. He was always upset. Everything. He was very fussy, and he was always crying. And you know, I just remember that. And he was pain. He was pain. And he wanted my mother all to himself, and eventually my mother bonded with him because I forced her to take him into the store. She used to shoplift. She didn't need to financially. My father was doing well financially. She just had this addiction to shoplifting, and she'd leave us babies in the car while she went and shoplifted. But she almost got busted once because I had to take the baby out of the car. He was going to die. I mean, he was suffering, and I'm like 2.5, and he's a newborn baby, and a woman in the parking lot almost busted my mother. And it was the 60s. It wasn't today. Today the police would have been there without any hesitation, and my mother would have gotten in trouble. But those days people were a little less they were a little more scared to report people, and my mother got away with it. And after that, I told her, take the baby inside the store. I'll be fine in the car. And that's what she did. And then she ended up bonding with my brother more than she bonded with me. And then she didn't want me anymore. And the baby, I call him the baby when I remember this, because that was what he was called back then. I'm remembering this for myself. Nobody told me this. The baby was proud of this, and he would just be like, she likes me better than you. And I just really hated that. I really, really annoyed. He was so annoying, And I saved his life, but he, of course, to this day, he doesn't respect that and doesn't give me credit. And I'm used to nobody to giving me credit for anything. This day, the baby is a grown man who wants to label me something I'm not, because he knows I have dirt on him. And if law enforcement knows, he could go to jail. And, there's no statute of limitations on murder, right? And yeah, my father was the Zodiac killer. So of course he involved all of us in his crimes. I mean, he didn't stop killing people. When my Uncle Norm told him to, he's like, he told him, I'm opening up all these cans of worms talking here. I can't just sit and talk about one thing without it leading to other things. I'm a big, huge can of worms. My Uncle Norm, I went to my Uncle Norm because my mother wouldn't respond to, I went to my mother about my father being the Zodiac killer. I wrote all his letters myself, and I remember this for myself. I was a young child. I was born in 1965, so do the math, all the dates with the Zodiac killer. That's how old I was, and it was my beautiful handwriting. I mean, I know it wasn't perfect handwriting for an adult, but it was my handwriting when I was under 5 years old. We left California when I was 5 in 1971. I turned 6 at the end of that year. It was before my first year of kindergarten. That was my handwriting. He dictated what he wanted me to write. I wrote what he wanted. I tell him, we would speak in Japanese too. That was my first language. And I would give him my feedback. I'd tell him what I thought. I didn't, but there were times when he'd veto my input, and he'd tell me to write something else, and I just wrote what he wanted me to. It wasn't me that wrote those letters. It was the Zodiac that wrote them. But, at a certain point when he was going to blow up a whole bus of kiddies, right? He used to call me kiddo. I grew up being called kiddo, and he called them kiddies, right, in the bus. And that was just too close to home. It was like, you want to blow me up? No, you're not going to blow me up. And that's when I started telling my mother, showing her, the ripped square piece of the striped shirt of that poor taxi driver in Presidio, San Francisco. She just wanted to believe it was some woman's period, some kind of blood on a rag from a woman's period. I mean, the most ridiculous thing in the world. He kept it inside a box on his desk in his little den. And I did over on TikTok. If you look up, I guess it's The Truth Heals on TikTok. I have a little video I made of the Zodiac house. It was on the market for, I think it was over $1 million or a couple million. And I was shocked. I mean, that is the house from my childhood that is worth the most money to this day. I mean, it's a very expensive area, Palo Alto, California. I've lived in really nice towns. Growing up, I lived in really nice towns, but I guess Palo Alto is the most, the property values are through the roof, and it was a beautiful house. Oh, you know what? I don't have my phone. I can hear my phone ringing in another room downstairs. I thought I brought it up. Dean might come up with it. Yeah. So, it was a beautiful house. It was a ranch style house, but it was a very unique ranch style house with a back patio, nice, good spacious fenced in backyard. It was kind of like, it wasn't a typical ranch. It was kind of like a T shape. Just really a nice house. I really loved that house. There was a lot of sun, a lot of windows. I think Daddy designed it. I think he was the architect, secret architect. It was somebody else. He had a different name, somebody else took credit. But I think he was the one that designed it. And I had the master suite because, Daddy had a lot to do with that because when they had company, he didn't want the baby, me. Well, I wasn't the baby anymore. Mark was the baby, but the kids, the baby, the little ones needed to be away from the living room area because there were a lot of parties at that house, and they needed to be away from the partying. And the master suite was away from the partying, and then there was a little bedroom in the back where the crib was for the baby, which was my brother. And the den was, where the bathroom is now in this house. And and they had the bathroom in the hall next to the living room, and they moved it. I don't know. I have to look at that video to remember. I went through it all in that video. It was kind of interesting for me to go through that house and remember everything. And yeah, there was like a family room beyond. There was like a hallway kitchen, and then in the back was the family room area. A lot of stuff happened back there. That's where all the criminal stuff happened in our house. There are bodies buried underneath that house. And I didn't, so I repeat these stories again and again because what am I supposed to do? It's not public knowledge yet. I just got to keep putting them out there. I'm supposed to be declassified this year. July 23rd marks 50 years that I've been classified top secret. Really looking forward to having a life, turning 18. All right. I guess we were reading all of this, weren't we? See, things trigger ideas and memories, and I just talk. And this is why these lives are very interesting. It's a really good way for people to understand how my memory works. And anyway, but let's finish reading this. I guess I said all that I needed to say. I don't know, when I go down these rabbit holes, it's hard to kind of work my way back. All right, let's see. All right, so the most revelatory testimony of the day came from Sherman, who initially commanded the guard troops Trump deployed to Los Angeles. He recalled his opposition to a request by immigration authorities for military support during an operation slated for Father's Day in the city's MacArthur Park. Intelligence, Sherman recalled, showed a minimal threat to federal immigration agents, and the proposed operation would have sent military vehicles through the center of the park. But when he expressed misgivings, Gregory Bavino, the chief patrol agent of the Customs and Border Patrol's El Centro sector, who has taken on a leading role in the Los Angeles immigration crackdown, pushed back strongly, Sherman recalled. Asked by a lawyer for California if Bavino questioned Sherman's loyalty to the U.S. over the issue, Sherman answered simply yes and did not elaborate. The Trump administration objected to the testimony about loyalty. But Breyer overruled the objection, saying it was a notable window into the mindset of key decision makers. Yes. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, declined to comment, calling questions about the exchange a pathetic attempt to divide our law enforcement and our National Guard. Okay, the Department of Homeland Security. Yeah, you are not to question. How dare you question those in authority? That's authoritarian. Okay, that's an authoritarian way of thinking. Ultimately, after Sherman raised questions, the operation was retooled, rescheduled for July 7, and approved by Hegseth. In addition to the MacArthur Park deployment, dubbed Operation Excalibur, lawyers for California homed in on 2 other immigration operations and suggested that Guard troops were being called in by ICE to aid law enforcement, even when their presence was not necessary. The other 2 operations took place at marijuana farms far from Los Angeles' city center. And marijuana is legal in California, isn't it? I know it's not federally legal, right? But it's legal in Los Angeles. I think it's legal to smoke for recreational purposes too. So what are they doing cracking down on marijuana farms? California says it's legal, and that is their land. They have jurisdiction over California. I know federally it's not, but the federal government leaves it to the states to make those decisions, right? I mean, Trump made such a big to-do about that with Roe versus Wade. We're giving the power back to the states to make up their mind in education. Oh, we're putting the education back in the hands of the state. Every state will decide how to educate their own children. It's not up to the federal government to just make decisions like that. Okay, but when it serves him, he's going to interfere with the states' rights, right? It's, there are certain powers he wants the states to have, but he doesn't want the states to have power to decide when and if they want assistance from the federal government in their law enforcement duties. When he wants to have, seems that Trump wants his cake and eat it too. He wants to be in control of law enforcement in every state. But when it comes to abortion, when it comes to education, no, that's the state's thing. I don't want to interfere. The Democrats overstepped their authority when they interfered with education and the education of our children, and they interfered with abortion rights for women everywhere. No, that's not our duty. That's not under our authority. That's under the states. That's for the states to decide. That's the authority of the states. And, that's what our United States are all about, the power back to the states. But then when it comes to the police, the law enforcement, Trump wants all the power, doesn't he? All right. Where are we? Yeah, so California says marijuana is legal. It's legal for recreational. I mean, am I mistaken? I think it is. I mean, they were one of the first states to make it legal. Let me make sure. Maybe California hasn't. I know Oregon is legal, right? I know Washington State soon followed. I know New York is even legal now. But is California? Is marijuana, I'm looking it up, legal in California? I mean, usually it's California first, right? Before New York, right? Okay, it is legal for adults 21 or older to possess and consume cannabis, marijuana, weed, pot in California, like drinking. Sale of cannabis from licensed retail outlets is legal. January 1st, 2018. That's what I thought. So it's like drinking now. Okay, you have to be 21 or older and you can smoke marijuana in the state of California. You don't have to go to any kind of legal pharmacy anymore. It has to be a licensed retail outlet, which can be a pharmacy or it can be, I don't know what kind of, I've never seen that. I lived in California before it was ever anything legal. So I've never seen a store sell pot. I would love to see that. And here I am in New York State. I should look around and see. I mean, I'm not interested. I'm interested for Dean, maybe. Dean and I have discussed this because Dean has, he has a problem with rage. And, I've talked about how there are some programs for that now where they use mushrooms and, of course, marijuana can be prescribed for that to mellow him out. That might be, I've always wanted us to look into that. And here we are in New York State where it is legal too. I think it is. I mean, let me make sure. New York State. I mean, I think I heard New York is, I think it's the same as California. And here, New York State. New York State legalized adult use cannabis for people 21 or older. Impaired by cannabis is illegal. People 21 or older are allowed to possess up to 3 ounces of cannabis flower and 24 grams of cannabis concentrate, like edibles or oil. Okay, so there's a limit. I guess they're a little stricter than California, but not, they're similar. Yeah, so I've never seen any store sell any of this stuff. So, I mean, I actually, we went to a store in Bath. We went to Bath today to the junkyard. We went to Bath not long ago, and there was like a little like spirituality store, and they had pop pipes and bongs and things. But I didn't really look carefully. Of course, I'm not looking for drugs or marijuana or cannabis or anything. But I'm wondering if they sold it. I think I did ask. What's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter? Hold on, my kitty is suffering. What's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter, baby? What's the matter? Are you okay? What were you doing? What's the matter? Why were you making all that noise, baby? Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Who's that? Oh, is he outside the door? Is he outside the door? Are you out here? Who's making a noise? Who's making a noise? Who's making a noise? Are you okay? Who's making a noise? What's going on, you guys? Is everything okay? Okay. Oh, look at this. I got to put this on. Hold on.
We were the second show to the Super Bowl. But since then, the Academy Awards have gone down to, I think they've gone down to numbers that are like a regular show because it went woke. We're not doing it for that reason. We're doing it because we want the great talent. But these are great people. So I was just a very long answer, but I was very involved.
Mr. President, the Biden administration was auctioning off border wall materials, but we're hearing now that the auctioneer is selling those materials back. Are you finishing building the wall?
Well, I built hundreds of miles of wall, and I was getting very close. I actually finished the wall, but then I added another 200 miles because when you do the original wall that I said I was going to build, which I got built, and I got it to the specifications of the Border Patrol and ICE, the exact. They wanted steel, they wanted concrete inside, they wanted rebar inside that, they wanted it to have wires. The walls are wired for, all of the internet stuff and security things. And we built it hundreds of miles. We did great. That's one of the reasons, even now, we're able to have such good numbers at zero, or essentially very little people coming in. But Biden, I ordered for another 200 miles. I was going to do another 200 because it's the way it is. And we're all set to do it. Then we had the bad election result, the horrible, what happened to our country, what they've allowed to happen to our country. And we are taking now that wall back. They sold the wall. Now, this is expensive stuff. Hardened steel, very expensive. 9,000-pound concrete and rebar. Rebar is very expensive, the hardest rebound. No, it's very, very hard to cut. You have different materials. It's very hard to cut because they cut it down if they can. It's very hard to cut. And Biden sold it for pennies on the dollar, 3 cents on the dollar, 4 cents on the dollar. He sold it. And I said, these guys really don't want it. That was when I first realized, when I saw the wall was being put up, because we could have finished the rest of the wall in about 4 weeks, anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. It was all set to go. It was laying down, ready to be put up. The foundations were.
Why?
And they took over.
Do anything.
And they said,
They still make
we're going to sell the wall. And they sold it, as you know, for pennies on the dollar. Well, Pam Bondi's been working very hard on suing that company, and I think they reached a settlement where we're taking the wall back. But they stole the wall from us. That wall is so expensive to build, and we had it, as you know, hundreds of miles of it, and they came along and they basically sold it for scrap. And what a shame that is. But that was when I first realized that these people actually want to have open borders. And no country has open. Who has it? Poor countries don't have open borders. No, we had open borders where people just walked in. It didn't matter what they looked like, who they were. They could have. We had 11,888 murderers, half of whom killed more than one person. Literally killed more than one person. And
Presidents.
this is who we took into our country. So the wall is the least of it, but we're going to take the wall back. We're paying a small amount of money, as I understand it, to get it back, to get rid of the litigation. We'll take it back. We'll put it up. Yeah. Go ahead in the back, please.
We have a murderer for a president,
I want to take it back to the Kennedy Center, if I can, just for a second, Mr. President.
Sure.
From what I understand, the Les Mis show exceeded everyone's expectations. Attendance, revenue, across the board.
Great.
Do you anticipate future shows to basically do the same?
I like that guy. Now, that's called a question.
No.
Okay?
Oh,
And he's a great reporter, actually. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I got it.
Yeah, it did great. Les Mis did great, broke records, and was sold out and beautiful.
Let's just get rid of this guy. Stop sharing. I'm not this channel. I mean, I guess I can make fun of them. I don't know. This channel is not a Trump propaganda channel. So if you're a Trumper, and you don't want to hear an opposing point of view or be open to any other point of view but what is presented by our criminal in chief, don't watch this. Okay. That's a question, one that strokes my ego and leaves out every other point of view other than my own uh egocentric, narcissistic point of view. Yeah. I really think that Trump is the reincarnation of King George. I'm a direct descendant of King George. He's one of my genetic fathers. The King George III, the dictator who started the American Revolutionary War. And I mean, that's why I was born, because I am I'm also a direct descendant of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. They had to make me a descendant of all the right bloodlines, so I would have authority over everyone. Okay. And in Vega, I talk about Vega. Vega is like what we call heaven. And contrary to popular belief, it's not a spiritual realm, it's an actual physical location. And where is that physical location? It is inside the sun. And I know that sounds really wild and nothing you've ever heard before, but it's the truth. And nobody talks about it because it's all top secret. I mean, classified, whatever. But people from Vega, heaven, they're of real flesh and blood, like you and me. Only in Vega, when your heart fails, they can live forever in Vega. And, your heart fails, they just replace it like, you repair a car. They have all body parts, you can be whatever age you want to be. You don't have to age if you don't want to. But in Vega, they revere aging and revere old age, wisdom, it's equivalent. That's what wisdom is, old age. And so in Vega, they like to look older. It's the reverse of our culture, the reverse opposite of our culture, where we're all obsessed with youth. And in Vega, they're all obsessed with age. I mean, at least classically so. I mean, and they're aware of what goes on Earth, so they adapt to our culture. They come down here all the time. It's in Vega. It used to be really foreign to our culture to help others. Like, you think of capitalism as just helping yourself and just making profits at the expense of anyone and everyone. And in the 80s, it was kind of like that, right? It was more like that than it is now. Now it seems like our culture is starting to, at least, online marketing and things like that, you're supposed to over deliver on value. These are all Vega concepts, and back in the 80s and other times, we didn't, that whole idea of over delivering on value, that big, people charging big prices for things and making a killing, that's our culture. And Vega, they compete, everything's free. And people compete to see how much value they can create and give away to people. It's like that's the competition they have. And whereas in our culture, people compete to see who's the richest person in the world, things like that, like who can make the most money, right? In Vega, it's like who can help the most people, who, it's an enlightened culture. That is Kosen Rufu. And we don't have it here on Earth yet. Contrary to what anyone believes about Japan, Japan has not achieved Kosen Rufu. And in fact, I think Kosen Rufu will be achieved here in America before it could ever be achieved in Japan. Japan is not an enlightened culture. The reason why Nichiren Buddhism was, why Japan was chosen to be the environment where Nichiren Buddhism emerged and it was chosen. It was definitely something planned. And the reason it was planned that way is because Japan, at the time when it emerged from the earth, I'm talking about Nichiren Buddhism, was the most defiled culture on the planet. It's one of the older cultures on the planet. China is the oldest, isn't it? Or one of them. And Japan comes, evolved from China, and Nichiren Buddhism came out of China. Yes, it started in India, right? I mean, at least on Earth, and then traveled up through China, and last stop was Japan, and that's where Nichiren Buddhism emerged in about 750 plus years ago. That's the cover story. Now, it is, Nichiren Buddhism is the more recent name of a philosophy, of a practice that has been in existence for eternity. And my ancient name is Myoho Renge Kyo, which is some of the words that we chant as Nichiren Buddhists. Nichiren Buddhism is much older than 750 plus years. It predates Judaism. It predates Asian cultures. It has existed before this earth was. I don't know when it came into existence. I just know it's older than any culture on Earth. And but yeah, we say it emerged 750 years ago in Japan. And Nichiren Daishonin was the first person to publicly chant the words that Nichiren Buddhists chant. And he put the word nam, which is a Sanskrit word that means devotion to, in front of the words that he put nam in front of my ancient name. But it also is the name of the Lotus Sutra in an ancient language that predates Chinese. It's an Asian language. Well, you can't really say an Asian language because it predates the earth, the cultures, earth cultures. And yes, it resembles Chinese and Japanese are the human cultures on earth whose languages most resemble this ancient language, but it's a different language altogether. And my ancient name, Myoho Renge Kyo, is the title of the Lotus Sutra in this language. And this is why I can't chant, because if I put a nam in front of that, I am saying I am devoted to this teaching, which is personified by this living entity that is me. But if I do that, the universe, there are powerful consequences. When you chant, okay, this is not just saying some words and giving you some kind of meditative stress relief. There are incredible consequences. These are powerful words that are too difficult to explain because they're beyond our comprehension, and you just have to do it to understand. And once you chant and you try it and it works, and because really it will work. It will show you really fast what you're capable of and how powerful those words are. And once you see what it does for your life, you're hooked and you won't ever stop. If you tried and you stopped, it's because you never saw the power, or you didn't allow, you were distracted. There's something that came in the way of you seeing the power of those, of chanting those words. In my case, however, because I am the living entity that is that teaching, that I know it sounds really bizarre when I talk about it in that way, but I have proven it to myself again. I mean, I was told about it when I was a baby, when I was a young child, and but I've actually proven it with my own life. I mean, what happened in 1994 is what happens when I chant. My brand new husband was brutally M'd, Murdered, Ron Goldman. Is horrible by the guy, the absentee boyfriend I broke up with that very morning so I could get engaged to him. But I didn't realize that the pretend marriage ceremony that our friend George performed the night before was an actual marriage ceremony. I had no idea. I just they convinced me it was a romantic thing for two platonic friends to do. I mean, I hadn't decided, I hadn't made the official decision yet to marry Ron. I was thinking I was getting close, that night of June 11th, Saturday evening. And then he romanced me, wined and dined me, and that was it. I was gone, and I had made my decision. And I told him the next morning, and he was shocked because I had a lot of opposition because I was devoted to my boyfriend who was absentee all over LA, with other women. But I was devoted. I was waiting for him to come to his senses and return back to our relationship. I mean, but yeah, and in that process, I met Ron, and Ron blew him away, and I couldn't say no anymore after a time. It was a few months. And I called David, he wouldn't pick up his phone anymore or anything. And I had to leave him a voicemail message. And I don't know if that message still is in existence. I wonder if he saved it. He used to, it was one of those old machines that had the old fashioned cassette tapes. And I'm wondering if that tape exists somewhere. It might. The FBI was in David's life, monitoring him. So it's very possible it's still in existence, and maybe one day I'll hear it again, and everybody else will too. It was a really beautiful message I left him. It was really dramatic. I remember the main gist of it, and basically I told him that his dream, he had been chanting to get rid of me, and I'm like, your dream has happened, and in your absence, I met a great guy, and he wants to marry me, and I'm gonna do that. And, I didn't kiss him. He kissed me. I didn't kiss him. I reminded him that one of his ex-girlfriends did that, but I didn't. I was faithful to you to the very end. I mean, I didn't, of course, at that point, I didn't really understand that I was being D'd, D-R-U-G-G-E-D. They did try to tell me, and for moments I had the awareness that was happening, but it was in and out. It was in and out of my consciousness. I couldn't hold things in my consciousness. This is why they knew I needed 20 years, at least 20 years. Everybody needed at least 20 years to heal, and there were some other witnesses. I've spoken about them on these broadcasts, and, we all needed to heal. And they thought, the FBI really thought 20 years would be about right, but they couldn't get anything less than 30. And I, of course, thought it was 30 years from 1994. Of course, anyone would think that. But if I think back on when I was classified in the first place, top secret, it was 1975. So they must have been getting prepared for 1995, which would have been 20 years for me. So as of this July 23rd, 2025, I've been classified top secret for 50 years and counting. I don't know. Maybe on Monday, when Trump took control of the police force in Washington, D.C., I knew something had happened, and I don't know what. I thought I must have been declassified, and he's trying to take control of his government in Washington, D.C., because I am the true queen. He's not a king. He did not grow up in my family. He's one of my many genetic fathers. Okay, one of my many genetic fathers. He did not grow up in my family, to be queen, or and anyway, it's a female lineage. It's not a male lineage. There's no king. It's a queen. Okay, and that's me. Queen Elizabeth is one of my grandmothers. She was the younger sister, genetically speaking, the younger sister of my grandma Elliott, Ruth Elliott. Her maiden name was Holt, right? Holt, H-O-L-T. And she was the older sister, but she stepped aside. She said, go ahead, Elizabeth, you can take over. It's okay, because nobody knows who I am. And she was just a little girl. She was just a young woman in Iowa, in America. Yeah, so and then she gave birth to my father, Dennis Elliott, the Zodiac Killer. secretly when she was like 13 years old or something. And it was 1941. So do the math. She was born in 26. 36, she was 10. Oh, so she was a little older. So she was 15. He was born in July, so she was 15. My grandma, Elliott, was 13. 12, almost about to turn 13 on the 12th, when she gave birth to my genetic father, Daisaku Ikeda, on January 2nd. She turned 13 10 days later, which is a lot worse, I think. When you're 15, you're a little more developed and maybe can handle it a little better emotionally. But yeah, what they did to my grandma Elliott was the worst. And I don't know how she got. They implanted them. They didn't. I don't know. But my mother Anne was Marilyn Monroe. My genetic sister Marilyn Monroe, gave birth to her in Los Angeles in 1939, and my grandma Flanagan and my grandpa Flanagan adopted her, thinking it was a relative of my grandpa Flanagan, and she was their grandchild. And Daisaku Ikeda was her genetic father. I do not believe he was involved in the impregnation. What do you say? I don't know. Getting Marilyn Monroe pregnant. She was implanted, and she was born in 26, and she gave birth to my mother in February 17th, 1939. So that's 13 years old. Her birthday was, what was it, in June? I don't know. She was born in 26. I think she was, I don't know when Marilyn Monroe's. Oh wait, I should know. My Uncle Dick was her twin brother. My grandma Flanagan, I know it's complicated, gave birth to my Uncle Dick in 1926. Was it in June? I think so. I'll look it up. He's no longer with us. Marilyn, where? Birthday. June 1st, yeah. 1926. That was my Uncle Dick's birthday as well. He's her twin. He's no longer with us. He died, I think, in the early 90s. My mother, who died on October 5th, 2020, was it 2? The big year when David Wayne Craig, who is the true identity of Brian Koberger, went crazy and did what he did in Idaho. That was one of the things that triggered him. When my family, I had told David that my family didn't inform me of my father's death 2 years before that summer, and his mother had died, and I wanted to get his mother together with a neighbor, an elderly neighbor I was taking care of, who I was convinced was her twin, separated at birth. They had the exact same birthday. And David's mother, it never happened. They never got together. I wanted them to get together for their 90th birthday. It never happened. That's why I reconnected with David, just for that purpose. Never happened. And then his mother died 2 years later. They turned, okay, their 90th birthday happened in February of 2021. And then his mother died a little over a year later. It was very sad, in 2022. And that was the start of what happened to cause David to do what he did in Idaho at the end of the year, that same year. And then, he found out I didn't know about my father's death I just found out in June about my father being dead, dying 2 years before. And then his niece died, and it was probably due to him pushing weight loss drugs on her, because she died of pancreatitis. And And she died on September 4, 9/4, for 1994. His mother died Memorial Day, and that was when David and I started going out in 1993. And then he was observing me online and saw that he found out my mother died on October 5th of 2022. And I had no idea. And I was visiting New York and going on, and I was right near her grave. I guess she was buried in New Jersey, northern New Jersey. And that's very close to New York City. Nobody informed me. I had no idea. I was just in New York City for the first time in years. It was my birthday. Nobody told me. And it wasn't much of a birthday. I'll just have you know, it was a terrible birthday. I had hoped it was the moment when I was gonna get my life, but no, it didn't happen then or and I have a lot of footage from New York City that I've had to clear out my phone. My iPhone, I thought I got the most storage possible for my iPhone when I've never had an iPhone before. I got the iPhone for the first time in 2020? Yeah. No, it was 2021. I think it was probably in the spring. Yeah, it was maybe June in there somewhere of 2021. And I got 1 terabyte, I guess. I guess it was the most storage I could get, right? It wasn't I don't know. I knew I needed storage because I always ran out of space on all my phones before, and I was tired of replacing them every year. Oh my God, the Androids I got, they just, after a year, I had to, they wouldn't work properly. I ran out of storage. It was terrible. And I got my iPhone in 2021, and I've never had a problem with it. It's been great. And it's been 4 years now, over 4 years. And I have not had to replace my iPhone, but I just recently ran out of storage. So I've had to I've been going through the tedious process of, I never thought I had to worry. I thought 1 terabyte, oh, that's plenty of space. I'll never have to worry about it. But now with video, you do eventually. It takes 4 years in my case. But yeah, I'm taking my videos off my phone and saving it elsewhere. And I have so much footage from New York City. I did a lot. And I had forgotten that because it was right after that I found out it was around my birthday in October 2022. And there was about a month, we're going into Halloween, and when I got back, it was like Halloween time, and we're getting into Thanksgiving, right? And just whatever else was awaiting me back home, that was one of the longer times I spent away from Dean and ever. It was not quite 2 weeks, I don't think, but it was getting close to 2 weeks, maybe. And I spent a lot of time in a hotel room. I had to switch hotel rooms. I started out in Lower Manhattan. I had to look for cheap places, and that's hard in New York, but I found a reasonable place. When you want to find somewhere that has good rates, weekly rates, right? That's what I try for. And I found a good place in Lower Manhattan. It was like in Chinatown, thereabouts. And then I found another great place in Brooklyn. And so after, I was planning on staying for less than a week or something like that. And then I was there at an event, and they convinced me to stay longer. And I thought, oh, that's my birthday. Oh, maybe there's something in store for me. Of course, Clara's always so sadly disappointed when she gets her hopes up. But I don't know. They really convinced me. I mean, they knew I was struggling financially, and they convinced me to stay another week or something, or extending my stay. And I had to switch hotel rooms, and go down to Brooklyn for the second week. And I don't know that I stayed an entire week. I don't remember at this point. I'd have to look it up. And yeah, so Uh, yeah, it was just a real birthday downer. Not that I was I'm so used to being disappointed. It's not like it's anything new. But yeah, I mean, to think that they got me to spend extra money. They knew I was already short on funds, and they went to all this trouble to convince me to stay longer and spend more money, and then like they give me the biggest birthday downer I could ever have. I mean, it's not like it was anything bad, but I mean, it was not anything worse than usual. It was just that I had hoped that my life might begin, and maybe I was there to start, they were going to start my life out with a big boom in New York City. I was really excited to be back in New York. It's been a while since I had been back to New York. It's been, I love New York. It's one of my favorite places in the world. It's like my second hometown. When I lived in Princeton, New Jersey, I grew up there, from a fifth grade on, and in and out of New York. And even when I lived in Connecticut for the 4 previous years, we moved to Connecticut when I was in the middle of first grade, and always in and out of New York City, with my family. I grew up, New York was my second hometown, New York City, and I love it there. And of course, when I turned 18 and I dropped out of high school because I wasn't going to graduate in time. I skipped all my classes in high school, and I moved to New York when I was 18 and never went back home. And I moved to New York City. And I was at Lee Strasberg Theater Institute at first, and then I met my ex-husband and at Lee Strasberg, and moved in with him. That was my dream, to move in with a guy in New York, and that's what happened. And then he wanted to live in Hawaii, so we went to Hawaii and we got married there. He'd been begging me to marry him, and I thought we were too young. We were 19 when we got married in Hawaii. And then we ended up back in New York because, he wanted to write music. And I'm like, well, how are we going to, back then we didn't have the internet. And I'm like, well, if we're going to be in the music industry, what are we doing in Hawaii? And I convinced us to go back. And the FBI told me to get him off the island because he's my triplet brother. My ex-husband is my triplet brother. And I guess, we're related to the royal lineage over there. I'm actually the queen over there. But yeah, all these dudes in Hawaiian dudes were trying to get my ex-husband involved in some bad stuff. And the FBI told me, they whispered in my ear when I was D'd, I was being R'd over there, RAPED. They whispered in my ear, get him the hell off this island. And I guess I remembered because that's what I did. I got us the hell off the island and back to New York. The mainland. Yeah, but I was telling a different story, wasn't I? This is the problem with all my stories. They're just so complex and intermingled with so many other stories. And yeah, and I have to find my way back to what I was talking about. But I was talking about how I love New York, and yeah, I moved to New York, like I said. Lived there for a total of, we went back, and, I lived there for a total of about 6 years in my adulthood. 5 years when I was younger. And, if you add up all the time I lived there from 84 and 85, we moved briefly to Hawaii. We were in Hawaii for like 4 months, and then we came back. It's like a long vacation, really. And then we came back. So I lived there from 84 until I left for Los Angeles in 89. That's about 5 years. Yeah. And it was almost exactly, it was like April of each year. And I came to LA when it was snowing in the valley, and I thought, oh, I brought the snow with me. Yeah. It was April that year in 89. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm a New Yorker at heart. I love New York. It's part of who I am. And I'm now in New York State, but not very close to New York City. It would, I think to drive there would be over 4 hours. The train takes almost 12 hours. And I guess you could fly, I could go to Rochester and fly in or something. I'm sure the flight is like half an hour or something. But yeah, Rochester's about an hour plus away, hour and a half, depending on traffic. And then I'd have to get on a flight and then land somewhere, like JFK or LaGuardia, or even, what is it? Is it Piscataway, where the Elisabeth, isn't it? Where the airport is, yeah, in New Jersey, and just take the train in or something. But I think it'd be easier just do JFK or LaGuardia and just hop on the subway and I'm there. Yeah, I could do that. Or if you had a private jet or even a helicopter. Wouldn't a helicopter work? I don't know how long a helicopter can travel. I mean, you're supposed to do short distances with a helicopter, right? I don't know if that's, a helicopter would be appropriate. I'd probably have to have my own jet or something, right? Like Air Force One or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I could fly there probably like a half-hour flight or something, right? 4 hours by car. It's over 4 hours would be a half-hour flight. Anyway, yeah, I'm talking about all kinds of stuff. I always do. I know, and this is why they want me to go live. I know they want me to go live every day because, and I'm a lot like Trump. Everybody talks about how he just like, he could talk all day. You put him on a stage, he could talk all day, right? Just random things come to him. He just keeps I'm a lot like that. I don't know. And we used to talk in an earpiece in his ear. And I told you it was when I was a kid in the 70s when we did this. Now, how is that possible? Time travel. I didn't do it as an adult. No. And I didn't co-write all the things that I did or co-create or co-plan or co-found. Well, it was really me founding it with my money with assistants. But it was all with adults. Did all this stuff when I was in 1974, pretty much, when I was 8 years old. And that's the age of the dragon girl in the Lotus Sutra. Yeah, that's when we did the most stuff, was when I was 8 years old in 1974, when I lived in Old Greenwich, Connecticut, and which is just north of New York City. It was like, closer to New York than Princeton, New Jersey. Princeton is about 45 minutes away by train. And I mean, car, it's probably more. I mean, I think it's an hour and a half, depending on traffic, maybe 2 hours if the traffic's really bad by car. But you get on the train, it's 45 minutes. From Old Greenwich, Connecticut, you can get on the train and be there in a half hour, I think. Probably, maybe less. I don't know. I haven't looked it up lately, but I know it's closer. If you were to drive down, it'd probably be like 45 minutes to an hour if you drove, depending on traffic. So it's a little closer to Old Greenwich than it was to Princeton. I moved to Old Greenwich, Connecticut when I was in the middle of my first grade year. My family always moved me in the middle of my, during Christmas vacation. They always interrupted my class in a certain school and moved me to a different school. They didn't wait to the end of the school year. It was always during my winter break that I moved school. So I was late for kindergarten in Lexington, Massachusetts in 1971. I guess back in those days, school started in September after Labor Day, and I was 2 weeks late for my kindergarten class because we were traveling cross country with U-Haul and we were behind schedule. And then we moved again. My father finished his MBA in a record year and a half. And of course, that's right in the middle of my school year. And he got his first job. I mean, after his MBA, after achieving his MBA, he got a job at RCA American Communications and in New York and Manhattan. And we moved to Old Greenwich, Connecticut, which was really close to Manhattan. My parents wanted us to grow up in a suburban setting, and Old Greenwich was perfect for that. And then And then my father got promoted, and they were opening up, they were going to build and open up a new American Communications headquarters in Princeton, New Jersey. And that's where we moved. We were there when they were building it. I remember the dirt, and when they were setting up the foundation of the building over at, what is it called? It was a certain industrial park off Route 1. And it's been so many years, I'm forgetting the name of it. My brother has an office there now. And he likes that. He likes being like my father. He used to hate my father and do everything the opposite of what what our family wanted. He was an art major in college, but then he totally turned around when my mother told him after he got his degree that there was some money she wanted to give him and not me. And so he did a 180 and started studying financial stuff and became a financial planner right after he graduated from college, even though he was an art major in college. Well, he was a telemarketer before. He's typical telemarketer too. He has a really good voice, and he had a radio program, I guess, for a while. Really, really beautiful voice. So he's really good at telemarketing, and he's really good at telling those lies and scamming people too. So he's the perfect telemarketer. I have a really good voice too, and I'm very personable, but I don't like telemarketing. I'm really good on the phone. I'm good. I actually won an award for Goodwill Industries for a certain location, over in South Augusta, the South Augusta office. I won them an award because of my phone work. I got them more. I forget what it was. It was right. I tracked down a lot of people who got jobs thanks to the resources at our office, and we got the credit for the most jobs when I worked there because I did all the phone work, and they had never had so many they had never recorded so many jobs that they were responsible for people getting until I did all the phone work there. And yeah. So yeah, I'm really good on the phone. I'm just, I just don't like telemarketing. I don't like. I don't know. I'm just sales. I have an issue with sales. I don't want to push anyone into something. I don't want to be unethical. I don't want to not tell the truth. Like my brother has no problem adjusting the truth just to get the sale. My brother's really good at that. He doesn't have the ethics that I have. So he was a really successful telemarketer after college, and then he transitioned into the financial world, and he's been there ever since. Even though he was an art major, deadhead, doing all kinds of drugs, and barely got his degree, I'm sure, but he got it. He did what he had to do, and he got the piece of paper, and yeah. Yeah. Lots of stories, guys. I guess, I think I've rambled on enough today. Let's see what's going on over here on Fox. Oh, we still have this Trump. Trump is still here. Let's just unmute. I'm going to share the screen and just see what the hell what is the questions they're asking him right now. Let's see.
Contract. The Philadelphia Federation of Teachers has come to the table ready to work. We've brought ideas, solutions, and a genuine willingness to negotiate in good faith. We're expecting the school district to meet us halfway. Every day negotiations are delayed is another day that educators have uncertainty as well as the public. We are asking the school district to meet us and to give teachers and students the education that they deserve.
Thank you, LaShawna. So now I am going to call to the mic Felicia Comrie, who, as I just told you, is a paraprofessional at the Kenderton School and also a parent of a school district, a Philadelphia child.
Hello, everyone. My name is Felicia Comrie. I am a special education assistant at Kenderton Elementary School in North Philadelphia. I'm a proud member of the PFT, and mom to a daughter who is entering the school year this year. This is my first job as an education professional, and it's a job that I love. In fact, I am also working toward earning a degree so that I can become a teacher in the Philadelphia public system as a part of the Para Pathways program created by the PFT in the school district. I hear a lot of folks in high positions talk about how important public education is and how irreplaceable public school educators are. Yet, I don't see that respect for our profession reflected in our paychecks or benefits. As education professionals in a larger school district in Pennsylvania, we face many challenges, but staffing shortages in our schools have many of us at the breaking point. I'm working in special education because these are the kids that have so much promise, but just need specialized services so they can learn and thrive. In my school, staff vacancies mean there just aren't enough staff to adults to staff every classroom properly in special education classrooms. That means every student isn't receiving the services they are entitled to and deserve. Understaffing and student overcrowding create conditions that make it more difficult for educators to be effective and for children to learn. When students who need specialized attention don't get it, they become disruptive to the entire classroom. Staff shortages shortchange our students, and they drive out talented and dedicated professionals. We do this work because we love the kids, but we also have our own families that we need to provide for. If the school district respected our work as much as they claim to, they would make sure we are compensated properly and fairly. For me, being fairly compensated for my labor would mean I wouldn't have to worry all the time about basic necessities. It would mean in the event of family emergencies, we would have some savings to get us through. A fair contract will also hold the school district accountable for providing all of the classroom supplies that we need throughout the school year. I asked the reporters here, does your employer make you buy your own cameras, equipment, notepads, and pens? As a mom to a daughter entering pre-K this year, I completely understand the families who are worried we might go on strike. To them, I would ask, if you support your public school and education professionals like me, let the school district know that we deserve a fair contract now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and Trump, he doesn't believe in special education, does he? He just thinks that children who have special needs just should just be allowed to die. Isn't that his attitude towards who was it? Trying to remember now. I think he has a relative who has a special needs child, and he just thinks they should let the child die. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Okay, I have to think about it. Okay, so Mary Trump is his niece. Who is this relative? Let me just look it up. It's is it one of Mary Trump's siblings, their child? It very possibly is. Let me see. Special needs child in Trump family. Right. Okay, so Fred Trump III, it says, Trump lives with his wife, Fred Trump III. Okay, so Trump lives with his wife, Elisabeth Trump, née Laurent, in Connecticut. Together, they have 3 children, Christopher, Andrea, and William. His youngest child, William, has the genetic variant KCNQ2 and a seizure disorder requiring a lifetime of care. Okay, so let me just see. I think that's Fred the Third, I think, is Mary's brother, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. William Trump, the son of Donald Trump's nephew, Fred Trump the Third, he has a rare genetic disorder that caused severe developmental and intellectual disabilities. Fred Trump III, in his book All in the Family, The Trumps and How We Got This Way, details how his son was diagnosed with infantile spasms when he was just 3 months old. Okay, regarding Donald Trump's immediate children, speculation has existed regarding Barron Trump potentially having autism. Of course, Trump would never want that to be public. However, Barron's mother, Melania Trump, has refuted these claims, stating that he is a normal child, and there has been no official statement or confirmed diagnosis from the family. Melania Trump also addresses the speculation in her memoir, asserting that Trump is not autistic and expressing her disapproval of the speculation. It's crucial to acknowledge that discussing someone's medical condition, especially a minor's, without official confirmation is considered inappropriate and potentially harmful. I agree. Well, anyway, there's a lot of Elon Musk is on the spectrum, right? I guess so is Brian Koberger, which is David Craig. And, since David Craig's major stroke in 2000, I think it was 9. Yep. June of 2009, just before the anniversary of the murders. He has changed a little bit, I think. And it might be more obvious today than it was before his stroke. But yeah, I definitely think that David was always on the spectrum, and so it doesn't surprise me. He's always been really obsessed with routine and things like that. Compulsive about cleaning and things. Yeah, always has. I just didn't put it together back then because I didn't know enough about autism to understand that. But yeah, he's got a lot of issues. It's not just that. Yes, but I don't think anybody should be ashamed of something like that. But yeah, it does appear that Barron, I know he's not a minor anymore. He's 18 years old, but he's a young person. He deserves his privacy. But, I've never spoken to him. I don't know how often he has spoken publicly either. But yeah, he does seem to have had some kind of difficulty adapting to all the attention that his family got after his father was elected president the first time. I guess, your father can be a big celebrity and then he runs for president and it's on a new level. Yeah, he seemed to be struggling a little bit. And why be ashamed of that? It's just, why should one be ashamed of that? It's, everybody's unique and different. And so he struggled a little bit, but I'm sure in other areas he's very, he's more advanced than other people. It's not, nobody should be ashamed of a diagnosis like that or any diagnosis. Everybody's unique. And in fact, it can become your benefit. It can become your strong point. It really can. And I don't think anybody should be ashamed. There's nothing abnormal. Even though it's considered technically abnormal, it's just like they call it special needs to be considerate. That it's not. It's just because it's not typical doesn't mean that it has to be bad. It's just different and special to you. But yeah, his nephew, his great nephew, is that the child of one of his nephews, right? Yeah. Okay, son of his nephew, right? So that would be his great nephew, has this rare, severe developmental and intellectual disability from a rare genetic disorder. And from what I understand from this nephew, Trump told him that, he should just let his son die. Like, if he said something, this is what his nephew, I guess it's Fred Trump III. And that is Mary. I just want to confirm that that's Mary's, Fred Trump III. Let me see. It might not be Mary's brother. Let's see. Is Fred Trump the third Mary Trump's brother? I don't think so. No. Yeah. No, Fred Trump III is not Mary Trump's brother. Mary Trump and Fred Trump are cousins, right? Oh, okay. I'm a little confused here. It says, no, Fred Trump III is not Mary Trump's brother. Mary Trump and Fred Trump III, the same person, right, are siblings. Yeah, that's what I said. AI is not perfect. AI is saying, no, they're not. Fred Trump III is not Mary Trump's brother. And then the next sentence says, Mary Trump and Fred Trump III are siblings, both children of Fred Trump Jr., which would be the second, right? And Linda Clapp Trump. Fred Trump Jr., which is their father, was the eldest son of Fred Trump, which is Donald Trump's father. See, Donald is not even the eldest sibling. Mary Trump, her father died, sadly, of alcoholism, or I don't know, was it cirrhosis of the liver? I'm not, yeah, I could look it up, but we'll be on. I've been on here almost 2 hours. So he died. He's no longer with us. And she's, I don't know, birth order. Is Mary Trump the oldest sibling in her family? She's born right before I was, May 1965. Okay, so she was born May 1965 to the eldest son of real estate developer Fred Trump, which is Donald Trump's father. So she's in the lineage, the eldest son lineage. Mary's older brother is Fred Trump III. So Fred Trump III is older than Mary. When Mary was 16, her father died at 42 of a heart attack caused by alcoholism. Okay, so now we know it wasn't cirrhosis of the liver. It was a heart attack caused by alcoholism. Okay, so how many children? I just want to know how many children are in their family. How many siblings does Mary Trump have? So there's only 2 of them. Mary Trump has one sibling, an older brother named Fred Trump III. She also has 3 other paternal half-siblings. Okay, so her father remarried and had 3 other children. Donald, he named his son Donald. Wow. Why did he do that? Donald, Robert, and Elizabeth, as well as a paternal aunt named Marianne. Wait. She also has one sibling, an older brother. She also has 3 other paternal half-siblings? Is that right? See, you don't know with AI. Mary Ann McLeod Trump. Is that her? Okay, this is a different Trump. This is she was born in 1912. This is not her. She has one sibling. She also has 3 paternal half-siblings? No. Okay, let me look up the Wikipedia. I don't want to take too much time. I'm sorry. She has one sibling, and does she have half siblings? Did her father name his son after Donald? No, they're talking about her paternal uncles, right? I mean, see, this is the problem with, okay, here we go. Here's the breakdown. That's a different question, but I think she only has one brother, and I do not think she has any half siblings. I could be wrong, because would he have named his son after his brother? I mean, who does that? Yeah, I think that's AI getting it screwed up. I don't want to take any more time going into this this Trump rabbit hole. So Mary Trump and Fred Trump III are in the lineage. Well, really, it's Fred Trump III, who is in the direct lineage. It's the eldest. When you talk about royal bloodlines, it's the oldest. It's the firstborn. The firstborn, and then it goes to their children, the firstborn of their children, and then the firstborn of their children, etc. And so Fred Trump the second, the junior, is no longer with us. So it goes to Fred Trump the third. And Fred Trump the third's third-born child has this disorder. And Donald was not the oldest. He was, I guess, the second oldest. I don't know. I think he has his older sister was a judge who he's not even the second oldest. They had a lot of children, right? 4 or something. I don't want to get into the Trump family right now, but he's not even in the lineage of his own family. And then he wants to be king, king of the United States, and he's not. I'm in the lineage, okay? And it's always a woman. Sorry, in Vega, it's the reverse opposite of our culture. Women have authority, I guess you should say.
England.
Well, no, England, it just happened to be females, but that's not the case. All of human culture, it's male dominated everywhere. But in England, they only had females to choose from. And so it was Queen Elizabeth for a long time, even though she wasn't the firstborn either. My grandma was the firstborn. Ruth was the firstborn in America. And she said, "Go ahead, Elizabeth. Go ahead. Stand in for me. I don't care." And Ruth was born in 1915, right? And I told you she gave birth to Daisaku Ikeda when she was 12, turning 13. So, little older than Queen Elizabeth. So, so I'm in the lineage. That's my grandma. She, Queen Elizabeth secretly gave birth to my brother. I associate my brother in my mind. I connect my brother Mark with my father Dennis a lot, and I don't even realize it. Dennis Elliott, Zodiac killer. Queen Elizabeth secretly gave birth to him in 1941. He was immediately shipped off to Iowa, USA, and my grandma Ruth raised him. Even though she didn't give birth to him, the Queen did, Queen Elizabeth did. My father, Dennis Elliott, was my grandma Flanagan, my grandma Elliott, my grandma Elliott's genetic son. He was her genetic son. But my grandma Elliott secretly gave birth to Daisaku Ikeda on January 2nd, 1928, when she was 12, almost 13. And then he was immediately shipped off to Japan to grow up there. And he's really the oldest child in that lineage. And I am his genetic daughter. And I am Dennis Elliott's genetic daughter, and he is on my birth certificate. And I grew up with him. He was the father of my household, even though he didn't act like it. He was not, he was a monster. He was not, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry to his second family, because as he got older, when you get older, you get wiser. And he was a much better father to his second family, the children that grew up in his second family, than he ever was to me or my brother. I wouldn't wish my childhood on anyone. And I got the worst of it. My brother didn't get the worst of it because he couldn't handle the worst of it. I had to weather it all. I was the firstborn. He was born in 68. I was born in 65. Okay. And I'm firstborn in the lineage. So and then on top of that, they made my Uncle Norm my genetic father as well. And there was this room, my mother for years thought that that it was that Uncle Norm was my real father, because she wanted a blonde baby with with blue eyes, and the night before the wedding, her wedding to my father Dennis in December of 1964, they had a little threesome without taking her virginity, so-called virginity. And she had already given it away to Jose Tota in her college days, but nobody knew that. That was a top secret. And they had a little threesome, and semen was put where it was supposed to be put, and then she didn't get her period the day of, she planned her wedding on the day she was getting her period. I mean, that's pretty shocking to me. Wearing white and having your period. Yeah, I guess it happens sometimes. Maybe they couldn't schedule, maybe the Catholic Church, they booked, in Palo Alto. Actually they didn't. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I looked it up, and I don't believe I'm going into too many details, but yeah, that was a rumor in my family. The Elliots thought that I was Norm's child, and he was, you look at the wedding pictures, and he's all proud. He's this 18-year-old kid, all proud of himself, standing in front of the bride, and my father has this look like, she's my wife, not yours, but he's like, it's so funny. It's so classic. And I actually resemble my Uncle Norm more than I resemble Dennis Elliott. I do. He has the big pupils, the round eyes, and the big pupils. He's a redhead. He's the direct descendant of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. And these are the Thomas Jefferson eyes that we have. I guess maybe Sally Hemings eyes too. He's got hazel eyes. He doesn't have blue eyes. I have gray blue eyes, and I'm not quite a redhead, but I think I have some red tones. And this is my natural color. A little dark living on the East Coast. It gets a little lighter out in California and Florida. Florida especially. I've talked about this. All right. I think I've been on here long enough. I don't plan on doing 2 hours every day, but today it just felt natural. I just felt like I had a lot to catch up with, a lot to go into. And before we go, let me just glance and see what Fox is doing. New Jersey boil water advisory remains in effect after massive main break. New Jersey. I don't know what part of New Jersey. Not important enough for me to stay online, but my brother still lives in New Jersey. He never left. That's the thing about my brother, Mark. We moved to Princeton, New Jersey when he was in the middle of his 3rd grade year, and I was in the middle of my 5th grade year, December of 1976, and he never left. He's always he can't. It's pretty expensive to live in Princeton, New Jersey today. It always was expensive, but it was, he doesn't live in Princeton per se. He's lived in the area, Princeton area, but he never left. He went away to college briefly in Rhode Island and couldn't stay away, couldn't handle being away from his mother that long, I guess, our mother, and ended up back in New Jersey, went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, a college that we used to make fun of as kids, and that ended up to be his college in New Jersey. And he would go there during the week and come home weekends to live at my mother's house and be with his girlfriend. And yeah, he's never left. The longest he ever left was that one year he was over at Roger Williams. And, I guess he came home a lot, winter break and spring break, whatever. That was the longest he ever spent away from the Princeton area. His whole identity is wrapped up in that area. He's never left. He watched me as the eldest child do the exact opposite. And so he did the opposite of me. And he's always been in that area. I've lived everywhere, because we moved around a lot as children. And I guess it had the most effect on me because maybe it had a different effect on my brother. Like, because we moved around so much, he clung to the area that became, I was there in time for my middle school years and high school years, and he was there as a child in the middle of his elementary school education, and he wasn't going to let go, and he just stayed there the rest of his life. Very different way, very different mindset that creates for each of us. All right, well, we are in conclusion right now. I'm going to end it here. Thank you for watching. I hope that someone out there finds these live streams interesting in some way or another. Have a good one. Over